I always tell students, it's going to hurt when you get hit. Put it somewhere else because you're going to get hit again. So if you're still thinking about the last time you got hit, you've already lost the fight. So you just put it somewhere else and worry about how much it hurts later. And what I found is that kind of carries over. I've had some personal things happen in life, and believe it or not, that attitude carried over into other personal things. Like with my oldest son and stuff like that, it hurts, put it somewhere, deal with it as you can deal with it.
But people are counting on me today. I still have to show up today.
Yeah. And to be able to do that both physically and mentally, it's one of those things we talk about in martial arts, it's changed my life. Well, that part, it certainly gave me something that made it much easier to deal with things. Not easy, but I was able to deal with things that would have just, I think, completely ruined me before.
Welcome to Pirate Life Radio with your host, Tait Fletcher.
Oh, what's up, savages? Well, you dirty animals. I just had the most wonderful podcast you're about to enjoy with Arlan Sanford. And Arlan is a founding member of the Dog Brothers Martial Arts and fantastic, high-end, like an exquisite woodworker. He has a background in powerlifting, Krabi Kabrong, Muay Thai, and is a very proficient grappler. And he is 61 years old and has been my teacher and a mentor to me since I first got to Santa Fe, New Mexico, really. And in the mid-'90s, I guess, is when we came together. Took me to my first Dog Brothers fights and mentored me through all those, and a lot of other guys too, Dave Monet, Isaac's Valley Flag, Dan Christensen. The hand of Arlan Sanford has really molded a lot of young fighters and men through life, and it's been fantastic. So anyway, I know you're going to enjoy this podcast, and I really enjoyed having it. Then he had to run he's also a master chef, and so he had to run and cook dinner for his family. So we cut it short, and we're for sure going to do another. But I just want to thank our sponsors, cavemancoffee.com. Please check us out. A lot of guys are trying to get Caveman Coffee Nitro cold brew cans, and they're dope. They're so good. If they're around your area, around Florida, Atlanta, Jersey, New York, Manhattan, Brooklyn, NorCal, all the NorCal CrossFits, in Modesto, Southern California, San Diego. We have places all through there. Santa Fe, New Mexico, Albuquerque. We have spots, and then we have a locations page where you can get that. If you're a baller, you can just order a case. Get it right to your house. Problem is, it's expensive. Shipping is a mother. The weight of it, and you got to keep it cold. We have perishable items. We have items that are, they're all not all messed up with fillers and with additives and with preservatives. They're all items that have a shelf life, and that's probably what you should put in your body, is only things that have a shelf life. So that being said, what I drink all the time, and I'm on the road all the time because I can't carry all that weight with me, is I just carry cold brew concentrate, and I mix it with mineral water. So I just get mineral water. Topo Chico is my favorite, but whatever, man. Girl Steiner or any of that kind of stuff. Mix it with your cold brew concentrate, and it is the best tasting, most delicious stuff ever. I love it. It's got a sweetness to it. I'm a sweet coffee drinking guy, and I just mix that with the cold brew, and it's awesome. So at any rate, cavemancoffee.com. Check out, we got some new lids out there. We got Pirate Life hats, shirts. We're going to get some new baseball tees that are Pirate as Fuck tees coming out soon. So check all that stuff out, cavemancoffee.com. Check out undisputedfitness.com. It's where this podcast was held, and it's where some of the finest training in the Southwest ever occurs. And we have jiu-jitsu here, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, and strongman classes. We have Undisputed Fit classes, which are like a quick burn class, in and out in 30 minutes, and a full CrossFit gym. So if you're into powerlifting, strongman, any of that kind of stuff, come on, check it out. UndisputedFit.com, or UndisputedFitness.com, rather. Also, the Caveman Coffee Cave, first one ever in existence, is here in Santa Fe. I also want to thank my friend Daryl over at Battle Balm. If you look at battlebalm.com, Battle Balm is only the finest natural ingredients. It's like a Thai liniment oil, but it's just all natural. There's nothing funny in there. If you're putting something on your skin, you want to know what it is. You don't want a lot of chemicals and everything seeping in through your pores. And this is a fantastic product for muscle soreness, for joint soreness, any kind of healing that you need. Don't touch your dick or your eyes with it, or you're going to be sorry. That holds true for a lot of things. Coconut oil, you get MCT from Caveman Coffee Co. You go ahead and touch your dick or your eyes with that. You'll be fine. You're going to love it, actually. Anyway, that's a whole nother story, I guess. Maybe that's not a selling point. I don't know. Listen, I can't temper myself. I'm just this way. So, battlebalm.com, lictanuevocerveza.com, bloodymaria.com, and also deucegym.com. Some of the best blogs that you'll ever read there if you need some inspiration or love out there. Also, check out Tait Fletcher on YouTube. I got some great content coming up out there, and there's some good stuff that's up there already. So my YouTube page is just my name, Tait Fletcher. Check me on Instagram at Tait Fletcher. My Snapchat is taitimusmaximus. And you can't find Arlan anywhere on the web because he's old school as fuck, motherfucker. Be present, be aware, and va con queso. Thanks.
A big Tait Fletcher.
Powerful Tait Fletcher.
Is a real alpha male.
Weightlifter.
He's a stuntman.
Movie star.
Robust, enthusiastic individual.
He's huge, by the way. He's like a monster person.
One of the sweetest guys I know.
He's bigger than life.
Actor,
Entrepreneur.
a fighter.
The jiu-jitsu technician.
He's also bald and he has all these tattoos. He's just a big fucking man.
A man, a myth, a legend.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
What's up, Tait Fletcher, you fat motherfucker?
Tait Fletcher. Tait Fletcher is
Tait Fletcher.
Teddy bear. Motherfucking Fletcher, ladies and gentlemen.
That's Tait Fletcher, everybody.
The great Tait Fletcher. Tait the animal Fletcher. Tait the savage Fletcher. Always moving. There's no stillness with Tait Fletcher. You will find no dust.
Tait Fletcher's in the house, ladies and gentlemen. He just said the word erection.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher's in the fucking house.
Tait Fletcher!
Tait really blasts out some serious hardcore truth bombs, and I think you're really going to enjoy it.
Hey guys, welcome to Pirate Life Radio. It's Tait Fletcher, and really appreciate you listening. Thanks for all the support that we've had. We've broken, I think every month we've broken 100,000 downloads, and it's pretty great. Like, we just started paying attention to it a lot in the last little bit, and been a couple weeks, and wanted to get one out. And today's guest, I have a guy that's been super dear to me in my martial arts journey and my life journey. Arlan Sanford. He's a founding member of the Dog Brothers Mixed Martial Arts, or Dog Brothers Martial Arts. And if you Google that, you'll find a lot of information, and some of it'll be right. Started with three guys: Eric Knaus, Mark Denny, and Arlan Sanford, and kind of really born out of the blood and the heart of Arlan and Eric as they battled, and this thing kind of grew of just how to find efficacy within their art form and cut the what was real from the fake. And there's a lot of ideas about martial arts and about what was going to happen. Is somebody going to die or whatever? And they just wanted to cut to the chase and go, with this blow have stopped you, and the point fighting that ensued after that wouldn't have occurred. And so anyway, after a tournament that they had, an international stick fighting tournament, Arlan and Eric were left, and they were left unsatisfied that perhaps what they just did was real or not, because they were so highly armored. So they took it off and decided to see what was real for the rest of the weekend at Eric's house. And as far as my journey with it, Arlan is so special in my life. He's been a guy that really introduced myself and Big Dan Christensen and Isaac Valley Flag, just countless guys way back in the day. Dave Monet from Minneapolis, way back in the day, original UFC guy. Just a ton of guys that he's really marked the path for. Guided Greg Jackson and his journey a bit, and we just have all kind of intermixed in this beautiful kind of amalgamation that was New Mexico mixed martial arts. And I'm a little breathless still, just out of a workout that Nate Harris and I just did, and got the opportunity to be back in Santa Fe, and I wanted to make this happen if I could, and Arlan was good enough to join us. So thank you for being here, and this is for you, sir, and just speak into it, and don't be too far, and good to have you, and thank you for everything that you've done.
Hey, I was thinking about it earlier when he talked about coming down. It was like, it's been a long, interesting journey, and it's been a blast. The people I've met over time, and the things that have happened, and how it's changed me, and seeing how other people have changed through all this. It's kind of a cliche. Martial arts changed my life, blah, 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 blah. But it ends up being true on a lot of levels, and I think it's really neat to see how it works for people. It's been a great journey.
How when you grew up in Kansas, and like that's got to seem like a million light years ago, in a way, and so like, and you came out here as a young man out west to Santa Fe, and then working Santa Fe, when I came here from Michigan, it was like the Old West. It was like people open carried firearms all over, and it was really like an Old West justice in a lot of ways, and a lot of nepotism and all that, and all that still goes on. But it must have been even wilder back there. Late 70s, early 80s, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I moved out in 76, if I remember right, 75, 76.
So you were one of 4 white people here at that time.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. It's this little oasis in the pocket of the mountains. It's very similar to Hawaii in like a lot of love and honor to the land with the people that are here. And if you're from outside, you get looked at with a slanted eye if you're from the outside. And so it takes a lot just to break in a way.
Well, coming from Kansas, it was quite a change in culture on a lot of levels. And I go into a restaurant my first weekend here, and I order a bowl of chili, and they bring me this bowl of green crap, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd always expect the same thing when I came. I'm like, Texas chili is what I'm thinking.
But it's funny because I really kind of felt at home almost from the minute I got here. I mean, it was really kind of an interesting experience. And then a few personal issues early on, and once those were resolved, I just ended up hanging out with a lot of local guys, and so I never really felt too much of an outsider here. I thought I was real lucky to sort of fit in on a lot of levels.
Did you know like Pablo Sanchez right from the beginning, like guys like that? Or you met them?
Pablo from way back. I mean, that was back really just as I started doing martial arts. Pablo was about the same time. He'd been doing Tong Soo Do with Al Martinez, and
right.
And we were all a lot younger then.
So you didn't really, your martial arts interest really started in New Mexico then, is that right?
Pretty much. I mean, growing up, we watched Kung Fu and, Bruce Lee movies and stuff like that, and you always had that would be cool, but it's not like you go around and find a lot of martial arts school in Kansas in the 70s. And moved out here, and it must have been 1980, right in that area. Saw a flyer that said Filipino stick and knife fighting, and I go, that sounds like fun. And went down, and there was a guy, he had Warrior Priest Arts, Doug Pandorf.
I remember.
And so we started doing the sticks and JKD, that sort of stuff. It's just sort of that Wing Chun, JKD,
right.
Inasano Academy kind of stuff. And had a blast doing that. And then we heard there was a seminar in Texas with some stuff called Thai boxing. What the hell's that? Let's go check it out. So went down and worked with Ajahn Chai. That must have been 82 or 83.
Wow.
You couldn't get Thai pads. Nobody had Thai pads. You had to make your own Thai pads. That's how far back it was.
How'd you make them?
Just sew them
Phone
up.
books and duct tape.
Yeah, I mean, we just stuffed padding and some little things and put some handles on them.
Wow, and you're taking a man's leg full force across your arms.
They were pretty crude.
Crazy. It's funny because when I got here, like those were the first. I went to Warrior Priest Arts over on 2nd, and then I did a seminar with Ajahn Chai, and that was like had to be like 93 or something, and like
I think it was earlier.
Maybe it could have been 91. That was when I first got here, but I don't know that it
was pretty early. Then. I know because Doug, yeah.
Then he crapped out or went his own way. But he was old then. Chai was. He had to have been 70 or older.
Chai's only. God, I'll have to check. I'm not sure. He's only like 10 years older than I am.
No way.
Yeah.
I was just like, here's this sage old man, and he's like, hold this $1, and if you can keep it, or some kind of like, kung fu magic trick like that. And I was like, that's the fastest dude I ever saw in my life. Like, just amazing.
Yeah, he's been a blast having worked with him over the years, and I don't know, the whole journey. Once again, the people I've met and run into, it's just. I see Ajahn Chai and Ajahn Jason Webster, who was my Kabika Bong, and worked with Guru Dan off and on for a bit, and of course Alberto and Grandmaster Dan Medina, and I got to go to Hawaii and Braulio Pedoy and the Dorobio, and one of my favorite instructors, Edgar Salete. I loved working with him. I learned more about teaching from him teaching me than just about anybody I've worked with.
How so?
When you worked with Edgar, if he trained 10 guys, you could not tell they were trained by the same guy.
So he trained to each individual fighter's strength.
Based on what
their
they were
movement.
and what their capabilities. I mean, several of us, Mark, I'm not sure who else, but several people worked with Edgar at the same time. And we all got completely different things out of working with him. And I thought that was one of the coolest things, was that he could train Mark to fight me to fight Mark, et cetera, with all these other guys. And none of us looked the same. I mean, you would never know that the same instructor had worked with us.
And how old was he? Like, I'm just trying to get an idea of how much experience does it take to be able to know that.
He was younger than I was, but, growing up in the Philippines, and he had trained with lots of people. He was in Paquiti Tercia. He had done, I'm losing off my mind, but he had Cali Illustrissimo, several things. Lameco is Largo, Medio, Corto, long distance, medium distance, close distance, and he had taken a lot of the stuff he had learned from these other guys and put it into Lameco, and I loved the Lameco system.
Do you feel that it's because it's so important to know everything, but you can't be good at everything. But you have to, it's like guys that are great wrestlers. Like, you want to teach them how to avoid. You want to teach them what a triangle is, so they don't get into a triangle kind of thing. And that's the kind of I'm never going to teach him to be great at escapes from a triangle, or maybe he's never going to do an arm bar from his back. But I can teach him what these things are and how to you can teach things around it and go right off. If we have a short time, here's how I want to get them to be as good as they can in the short time I have with a student. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent. I mean, of course, you want to be completely well-rounded. I mean, that's one of the things I've loved about Dog Brothers is you can't just go in there and not be good at everything. You can't, because you'll just get your butt whipped.
Yeah.
And one of the issues I had early on was everybody was training jiu-jitsu, and there was no jiu-jitsu in New Mexico. So what do? To counter that's when I started doing the Kabikabong and mixing the Muay Thai into the stick fighting.
So then if guys would crash, you would block them out with a forearm, clinch them, and knee them to death.
Yeah, or whatever
Right.
came in from, the kicks. After I got back from Thailand, I ended up having more knockouts with kicks than I ever had with a stick.
Right.
Because people weren't used to being kicked in a stick fight.
Right.
And so that was a lot of fun, by the way.
I remember when me and Isaac and Dan were all at the one gathering together, and I remember Isaac fought Dan, and just to put it in perspective for those listening, that Dan he's got to be 6'7".
At least.
He's a big man, right? And near, probably 280 or something, 270.
280, 295.
He fought Frank Mir. I think he's a better athlete than Frank was, and he just got lost in the lights of the UFC. But Dan was a fantastic martial artist, really good, and he'd done a lot of JKD and all that kind of stuff. And Isaac is this little kind of stocky, pudgy street fighter from Michigan, really, and they lost their sticks. And I remember, Dan was so good at jiu-jitsu, and he was fine in his guard, so Isaac tackled him and he was in guard, and that whole thing about, we're doing this art, and so this is the art we're doing, and then that's all that there is, and that's not true in Dog Brothers. And so they lost their sticks, and Isaac's on top, and I remember Isaac had his head on his belly for a second, and he looks over at me, and I'm I raised my fist, smash him, sock him, and Isaac came up, whop, and swelled Dan's, and before Dan's eye was even swelled shut, he's smiling, and he knew he was about to get it, Dan was really going to turn it on. But it's that kind of thing. It's when it can be anything. And that was the beautiful part. People ask, how'd you start this and this and that? And I go, I just got lucky and I met the right guy. And then, it's you just learn. I mean, distance is what I speak to a lot with that kind of stuff. And then going, if it got too hot with the feet, people were learning they had to know jiu-jitsu or they'd get lost. And so then we started training jiu-jitsu in Arlan's garage. And then, one thing after the next.
It was like a chess match. Somebody learns this. I got this great move. And you're like, oh, crap, what am I going to do to counter that?
Yeah.
So you go try to fight. You're not trying to match them. You're trying to counter them and beat them. Mark Denny was the first one to show up with jiu-jitsu. And,
because of the Machados, right?
And, Mark and I had from the beginning. And we had some really good fights, and basically I just kind of,
I powered him.
Yeah, a lot of power and just kind of overwhelmed. And we go to fight, and he closes, and I don't even remember if he took a hit. He probably did. And then he has my back, and he's choking me out, and I'm like, what the hell?
Are you guys still on your feet or standing?
I don't remember. I think we had gone to the ground at that point. We just kind of closed, and we tussled. At that point, we'd had the fang, and that was about it for our...
The fang, for those of you, it's like a choke with a stick that is being pried off the fulcrum of your fist into the guy's neck, and it is most uncomfortable. It feels like if you were going to be near death in a wrestling match, this would be the way that might happen. It's brutal, like the fang of a snake in your neck, except way worse. Like you'd rather be bitten by 100 snakes. Well, that was the neat thing I always thought about Dog Brothers, is that then you go, oh, instead of going, that fucker, he, like, or whatever, all the narrative, it's like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to have to know more about that. And that was the exact experience I had with Alberto Crane when, we were in your garage and you're like, I know this guy, he's coming back. He's been living in Brazil and he was 150 pounds probably. And I was 200 and whatever I am. And he's like, oh, cool, really sweet, humble, slap hands. And he armbarred me 3, 4, 5 times, I don't even know, inside a minute. Same arm. And I was just like, and I was perplexed. After like the third time, I was like, I knew, and I couldn't help it, that was going to happen. I thought, and then a guy's left with 2 decisions. You either go, that's bullshit, that's silly, you're with another guy on the ground, whatever, dumb, I'm out of here, I'm better than that. Or you go, I really don't know what I thought I knew about fighting, and you have to learn more.
And I can't think of a better way to kind of approach that kind of stuff, because I've been able to explore things I would never have. I mean, I always liked the Muay Thai, but I never saw a correlation between Muay Thai and stick fighting. It just wasn't there. All the original training I had in the Filipino arts was you didn't kick. There were some low kicks and stuff. You just didn't do it. And I go to Thailand and they go, what do you mean you don't kick? Of course you kick. You kick the crap out of everybody. You knee them, you elbow them. You've got all this stuff.
We're trying to win.
Yeah. And it just changed my whole view of what I thought weapons would be. And the jiu-jitsu, same thing. But to find that balance between how do I counter jiu-jitsu when I don't have it? Once I have it, how do I integrate it into what do I do as my strength? If my strength is power, is that going to work with jiu-jitsu? No, it's probably going to work better with the stick.
Right. Or to stand up and get or whatever the thing is. Yeah.
And it's just finding that, whatever works for you, but to have that venue to be able to express it. One of the things people say about Krabi Krabrong is it's all show, and a lot of it is.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, most people that see Krabi Krabrong see the show version of it, because there's not really any sparring or fighting, although there's getting to be more now.
So interesting that you say that, because to me, what I know about Krabi Krabrong is through you. And so what you always taught me was just power. Like power for, the thing. I've got a stunt friend of mine that he says, what's the most important thing do you think about fighting that is like translated into life and this and that? And I go, well, I think you have to come with like a temperance and a graciousness and a kindness. But I said, I also think with that idea, you always have to lead with power. And I said, I think, and that's with whatever it is, you should lead with power. You have this one impression to make, and you better put yourself in the best light you can. And so, yeah, he's hilarious, this guy, but he's always like, oh, yeah, that lead with, and I never even remembered that he would remember, I never thought he'd remember that. His name's Sean Graham, and he's kind of he's really a jokester, clown guy, but I asked him, lead with power, Tait, stand up straight, like he'd correct manners and stuff like that with it, but like that's the biggest thing. And so I remember you telling me a story once, before the Dog Brothers and all the lore and everything, and you said, there'd be men that were at war, and they would have an interaction with other people that were coming to war, and they would take whatever was in the rice paddy with them or whatever, and that's what they're fighting with. And then there's a generation where they're not at war, and they pass on their warriorship to their sons, and then by the second generation past that, it becomes, oh, this looks neat too, and then there's a lot of things that look really gorgeous and beautiful to view in an artistic way, but the martial aspect was eroded. Is that kind of what you're speaking to?
Yeah, and I think, and you see that all the time. I mean, I see it even in some of the Dog Brothers stuff now. I mean, I see stuff, I'm going, that ain't going to really make it.
Right.
But it all goes back to, and I'm not saying we were really truly warriors, our life wasn't on the line, but when you have that aspect, there's a certain way that you're going to approach life. When that it doesn't have that same priority for you, the art starts to take over. As more and more of the art starts to take over, because you're not really putting it under
It's got to be under the heat of the fire.
Yeah, exactly. And
It's kind of
once
like that
goes,
idea where there's a girl at Wadapalooza a couple weeks ago, and she was like, she came up to the Caveman Coffee tent, and she was like, I'm just super nervous. I go, what's going on? I said, it's a beautiful morning, Sunday morning, like rain stopped, what's cracking? And she goes, I've got to do legless rope climbs, and I've never done one before. And I go, wow, what a great opportunity. I go, you've been practicing? She goes, yeah, I've been practicing. And I go, awesome. I said, because you know when a PR never, ever happens? Never happens when we practice. It only happens in competition.
Yeah.
We only get our personal best in competition. So right now, today, look at what you're about to do. You're about to put and there's something about the fire, that crucible of competition, that really hones the edge.
Oh yeah, and for me, it's been once you experience that, then you can put things in context. One of the problems I have is as I teach people, if they don't have that chance to put that in the same context, I'm not sure they get what I'm teaching. You know what I mean? I mean, like,
now, is that because they don't have a competition experience? Like, I feel like if I'm talking to competition, whether it's a fighter, a CrossFitter, a chess player, that they all know what I mean.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think back to when we started training. I mean, in a way, you were sort of an experiment, because I'd never really taught anybody to stick fight before, and I wasn't actually trying to train anybody as a student. I just wanted sparring partners. And I remember we went out in the backyard and we took some sticks.
I remember you saying that. I just want somebody to hit. There's not a lot of people that I can talk into doing this. So here you and Isaac and Jeff Inman, I guess, had come, and Dave Monet had just left maybe the year before or something.
Mike Florimby and we all kind of beat on each other out there. But the whole point was, let's put it on the line and see what comes out of it, and then work on making it go from there. And I think that's what I liked about jiu-jitsu. You can't bullshit about being good in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes. We can find out what belt you are.
Yeah. and the sticks was for me was the same thing. You can talk a big game all you want, but when you go out there,
the difference though, if you're gonna bullshit out there, people, you want to bullshit about jiu-jitsu, because you can at least learn, and everybody can go, oh, he's full of shit. The way we saw that, because my white belt beat his ass in 30 seconds. There's more pain involved with finding out whether you're full of shit or not with a stick fight. I'm just saying, having been on the receiving ends of beatings in both venues, there's one you'd rather take. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah. I still remember telling you, talking about leading with power. Yeah, I remember telling Tait, just swing as hard as you can. I don't care if you're 20 feet away from them. I want you to unload that one shot. So in the back of their mind, they're going, son of a bitch, I don't want to get close to that guy.
Dude, and that's all I did. That's all I knew. I go, okay, you're going to go out, you're going to smack sticks, and then you're going to swing, and you're just going to fucking break the sound barrier. And I go, all right. And I do that, and then he's like, you've got, you'd always, and it was this Keith always, you'd see Keith, like Jardine, when he'd fight, he'd always have that right hand up, especially when he was a little tired or something, because he wants you to know, yeah, come on, but there's going to be a price to pay. And that you've got to have a threat in your arsenal. It's like when I take that son of a bitch Hank to the park, and we go walking down, and if there's, like, he's 50 pounds or 45 pounds, he's not huge, but if there's a golden retriever that's 70 pounds, and they're just sweet, nice dogs, but they go and they're a little timid, he'll bark at them and growl until they fall on their back, and until they're pissing themselves, he'll menace them. He's a little bully like that. He goes walking by a chihuahua or a little poodle or something, and they know they're little, so they have to stand their ground. They already know. And they come up, and he goes up sniffing them the same way, and they're like, "Hur!" And that's all he needs to know. He doesn't give a shit. He goes and sniffs the next thing. And it's something about that, I know that Hank will kill that dog, but Hank knows there's going to be a price to pay. That dude's going to scrap me, and I don't want that. And humans are no goddamn different. It's the same thing. It's like, you better at least walk with a little bit of confidence, like you're about something, and it's better to actually be about something, have some skills, and then everybody gets along better, I think, Dogs teach me so much. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, just playing mind games with somebody. I mean, that was one of the first ones I learned was, if you unload with that first shot, in the back of their mind, they're going, I'm screwed.
That's what that could
they've
feel
already
like.
Lost the fight.
Doesn't always work, though.
No, I mean, there's guys you can unload all you want.
Eric with one of my best shots across the inside of his thigh, maybe the worst shot a guy can take, like soft skin, like he had these big old thighs, and I dipped to a knee, whop, and I cracked him, man. And I could see it swell instantly by the time my body had even turned all the way through. And I was like, oh yeah. And he doesn't, and then I thought, I saw a strange thing in that, like, there was no buckling, there was no give to the leg. And I look up and he looks down at me like a kind old grandfather almost and goes, nice shot. And then proceeds to clobber me. I was like, God darn, man. Like some guys, like even if you got your best, it's not going to be good enough.
I don't care how much it hurt. You never let anybody know it hurt, because
that's not the beautiful
when they
thing
unload their hardest, best shot and you don't show any reaction, that just takes everything out. It's just like, is that all you grabbed? Okay, it was all right. You
said one time, or a lot of times, it's just right now. This is going to be 2-3 minutes. And yeah, there's going to be pain involved, but you'll deal with that pain later. You can't think about the pain right now. You've got to put it away. And as far as mental disciplines and stuff like that and mind games, even playing the mind games, like I've been thinking a lot about success and what that looks like. And a lot of people have been asking me about it. And I think, having dominion over your mind and your body, your physicality, your baser natures, your expressions, all of that kind of stuff, to be cognizant and aware of all those things. How is it that I'm making people feel, or all those things? What are they reading from me? And that kind of thing, like all my stuff comes from fighting and like lessons like that you've taught me. Like what do you think about that kind of thing? Like as far as...
I always tell students, it's going to hurt when you get hit. Put it somewhere else, because you're going to get hit again. So if you're still thinking about the last time you got hit, you've already lost the fight. So you just put it somewhere else and worry about how much it hurts later. And what I found is that kind of carries over. I've had some personal things happen in life, and believe it or not, that attitude carried over into other personal things, like with my oldest son and stuff like that. It hurts, put it somewhere, deal with it as you can deal with it.
But people are counting on me today. I still have to show up today.
Yeah. And to be able to do that both physically and mentally, it's one of those things we talk about in martial arts. It's changed my life. Well, that part, it certainly gave me something that made it much easier to deal with things. Not easy, but I was able to deal with things that would have just, I think, completely ruined me before.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like my mom, she just blew a back disc again, and the other day. But that idea of pain and how it's temporal. Like it's not, and I used to get confused with feelings and emotions, and I'd go, I'm having a feeling, and this is going to last forever. I'm always going to feel bad, angry, whatever the thing was. Usually, it was never like, oh, I'm always going to feel happy. I was always a doomsayer, And I think that those lessons transcended that kind of thinking so that it could bring me to another place also. Like the pain isn't forever. This thing, what I do with it isn't, and if it is somebody passing in my life, maybe it's not really honoring them to be submerged in this self-obsessed pain in a way.
But that's something I think you can train yourself to do, and a lot of people don't.
Yes.
They don't understand. That's a way you can choose or choose not to do. Once again, it's your choice if you want to live that way or not. And once you learn that you don't have to, and I think a lot of people never quite get that. I think it's unfortunate, but for me, it was a neat thing to be able to take that pain lesson from sticks and apply it to life, and it saved me a lot of issues.
It's interesting that idea by like savaging your body, you elevate your mind. That whole idea, like I don't know who coined it, which of you guys, but that higher consciousness through harder contact, which is the tagline of the Dog Brothers, and that's resonated with me the first time I ever saw that.
For the simpler version, the more you're hit, the smarter you get. It is, and it's like all those things. Like I think often about, which self it is that you're protecting, and when there's a stick whizzing by your head that's going to obliterate your consciousness, what self is it you're protecting? You're trying to look good, or are you trying to live? Like, because it's right. And so like, I think that thing about the pain or what I'm focusing on, a lot of it speaks to presence and like how present am I? How with you am I? How with whatever, am I at 100% at this task right now, or am I not? Because if I'm 80% in a stick fight, I'm asleep. And by asleep, I don't mean like I'm just mailing it in. I'm fucking unconscious. Like you can't, even with somebody that's not very good, you can't kind of just mail it in. You better be aware, because a stick is a stick, I think that's a beautiful thing, that whole thing. So when did you start first going, my mind's out of control with whatever and I need to
temper it somehow. I need to somehow become the master of this. Because, I mean, are we talking about the separation of the self, of who you are and what you think, and like this, you know what I mean? It's like you're walking around in this vessel of these thoughts, emotions, and all that, and that might not be who you are. Or is that who you are?
You know, I don't think it's much separation as integration, because you have all these pieces, and if they're all running separate, you lose track of what's going on. And I got to say, I think you brought up a great point about when you're in a stick fight and you have to focus. Everything comes together for however long that moment has to last, like nothing else that I've ever done. I mean, I'm sure there's other things that people do in extreme sports and stuff like that. It's similar, but
certainly.
Eric and I had a fight once. It went on and on and on, and we go, what the hell?
That was where people were so enamored with the fight that they forgot to blow
we were
time.
using huge sticks. We both knew whoever got the first shot in, that was the end of the fight. And and it was just full bore, all out, biggest sticks we've ever used, heavy. And we just went on and on and on. And we went for about, 3 or 4 minutes before we realized that we were past the 2-minute mark, because we were I've never been that focused and into the moment or as together as that moment. And it was just incredible. We got done and we were all like, holy crap. And everybody that was watching was like, son of a bitch.
Yeah. That's crazy. And there has to be, it wouldn't happen with a lesser opponent. Like it has to be, you have to meet an equal force to create that other energy. And I've felt that in stick fights before where I'm like, I don't know. And I think maybe Mark interviewed me after one and he goes, what do you think? I go, it feels like there's like another entity. Like I come together with this other man and this other threat or skill or being, I don't even like to call it a threat, but like this oppositional force that I have to meet and I have to deal with in some kind of regard. And it feels like there's another entity, and I'm reticent to call it God or something like that, but there's a spirit that is there. There's 3 of us there. There's me, this guy, and this other thing. Like there's another thing that happens inside that event, and that event is forever. And it was the first time that I felt like I'd read a lot of Taoist books and like a lot of Stoicism, and that's kind of where I got my semblance of spirituality in a way of like how to walk through this earth anyway, because I was lost without guides, and I looked at it and I thought, that's what those priests meant when they talk about that they live in the moment and they're immortal, because that moment is forever, and they're always in that moment. And I was like, and that's the first place I felt that, where I was like, I go, oh, everybody says be present. And I never understood why I needed to be until I felt that. And I go, wow, and then I've been chasing that feeling. I look for that in whatever I do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I think to be able to experience that, I mean, you hear about warfare and people that do extreme sports and sort of putting your life on the edge, and you're going, why the hell would somebody do that?
Right.
And then when you do it and you see what you get out of it, it's like, I get it now. I may not do that again. I may not do this. I might not do what they're doing, but that's something I will never lose.
I've got this friend, he does the wingsuits and squirrel, and he's like, he just posted a video today. He's like, all right, who's next? Next time we're going is May. And he tags me and a couple of guys, and I was like, it looks beautiful. I mean, it looks gorgeous, because he's got cams on all over him. A guy behind him flying has a cam on. And I'm just like, you're fucking flying. And I'm like, let's do a parachute first, Andy, and then we'll see, It's like the same thing, though. I went swimming in this, like, what I thought was sketchy was probably just nothing to these guys, but they're Hawaiian lifeguards. And I'm like, we jump off this cliff that was way too high for me to jump off of and everything else, but he already went, so now I'm pot committed. I got to go. And so I'm into it, and I'm not really a swimmer, and whatever. I got all these things. And I'm like, well, fuck it, we're into it. And all I thought is like giving myself is the same kind of thing. I go, here I am in this situation, and maybe I die, but he's the best guy in the world to save me if I get in trouble in the water. Like, there's nobody better than these guys. These are the best watermen in the world. And then the same thing with Andy. I'm like, he trained Navy SEALs to jump out of fucking airplanes he's a pretty good guy to go do that with. So I've been real fortunate. And the same thing with fighting, like you and Greg have meant so much in that and what that's been. You ever read a book called The Rise of Superman?
I have not.
You got to read it, man. It's a dude in Taos that wrote it.
And
it's all about that, like, and dialing in the endorphins and the epinephrine and the dopamine, like all the things in your body that cycle through before you do something crazy. And you'd get so much out of it.
One of the things, especially in the stick fighting, that I don't think people really get is how much fun it is. People see it, and it's like, especially when we're going all out with people that are really up there and going hard and big sticks and all that, and they're going, how can that be fun? But when you do it and you feel, I remember when we fought, we're out in the backyard and we're tripping over crap, and there's weeds everywhere.
Yeah, get your foot
and
caught in
we're
a
just
root.
beating the crap out of each other, and everybody's just smiling the whole time.
Yeah.
And people watch that, and they think there's something seriously wrong with those guys.
Even when you go down in pain, you're yowling, like you catch a bat, and you're like half giggling, half it's like you respect what's happened, and like that they were able to do that and all that.
Oh, I remember the first time, that first week I spent with Eric, and we switched from the hard headgear to fencing mask.
Yeah.
We'd been using these things you could take a shot with a baseball bat, and Eric reaches up. We go into the closet, and he reaches up and rummages around up on the shelf up there, and he pulls out these 2 fencing masks. And I mean, they're little thin. You can put these masks inside the new ones. And he goes,
the new ones are cherry. Padded and shit.
Oh,
I remember
yeah.
those old ones that were white and just covered in blood and rust. So
he
sure you're getting hepatitis putting this on your head, but you're like, fuck it, let's go it.
He pulls it out and he goes, "You want to try these?" I go, "Sure, yeah, why not?" We go out in the park or the tennis courts. We used to fight on tennis courts, and so we're out there and we're banging away. And he catches me upside the head, just lays me out. You watch the video, and I just stop and I just roll over. And I'm laying there. And stick hits are kind of weird. You don't really go out, but your body quits and your mind's still going, what the hell?
Yeah.
And Eric comes running over, and I'm going, man, what a great guy. He's seeing how, if I'm okay and all this. And he comes over, he looks at it, he goes, "Hey, how did it feel? I've never been knocked out. Tell me what it feels like."
Great.
So we go for, I don't know, maybe another, we fought for like hours. I mean, literally hours. We'd go out there and we'd just go till we couldn't go anymore. And so we probably go another 10, 15, no rounds. We just went till you couldn't do anything.
Somebody's tired or somebody got a good shot in.
He comes in and he had this move where he'd squat down and hit you in the leg. And he caught me in the leg, and I caught him in the head and just laid him out. And he's over there, kind of waving around. He puts his finger up and he goes, "I see what you mean."
That's so good. What a great opportunity. Just wanted to let you know how it felt. Yeah, I remember I got laced one time, and I got talked into fighting with a bigger stick. It wasn't my stick, and this guy just had these sticks, and I go, "Okay, cool." I don't know if they were 1.5 inches or something, but they filled my hand. They were big, man, and then I'm sweating. It's the Hermosa Beach, the summertime, and I didn't really account for any of that or the weight, and I throw a couple of shots, and then I go for a big caveman strike, and right out of my hand, this thing just flips and sails off, and there's 200-300 people circled around in the lawn chairs and everything. And I don't. It feels like at that thing like when you read accounts of like Gettysburg or something, and that all the gentlemen and ladies will be out with their parasols watching people get slaughtered, and that would be a day for them. It would be like the way they watch the Derby now or something, I guess. Anyway, my stick's gone, and I'm like, I stop. I'm not in the moment anymore. I'm like, and I'm forecasting all the horrible stuff that's about to, and then next thing you know, donk, and right on that front left quadrant of my head, and I go down to my knee. And I remember going a little black for a second, and I kind of come up, and it's just grass and some people's shoes and stuff, and I see this guy's feet in front of me, and all I think about, like that part about what self is it you're defending, I thought, it's going to be so embarrassing to get knocked out in front of all these people. And I sprinted at his legs and took him down, and I was able to punch him out and then get, I think maybe an Ezekiel choke or punched him out, I'm not sure which. But it's an interesting thing until I have that experience. I don't know who I am. Everybody talks in these fights all the time. You see it all the time. I got to stay off the internet, man. These guys are all like, well, I'd have done this or I'd have done that. Or I'm like, what would make you think that you would know what you'd have done under that kind of pressure? Like, how could you possibly know that? You've never been off the couch. That seems ridiculous. Or you're just a jiu-jitsu guy. Like, fair enough. It's a lot. Glad you're pushing through. But you don't know what that's like. It's like, I wouldn't know what it's like to be at a high-level chess match. I'm not pretending that I would know. I trip out. I don't know if you saw the fights this last weekend or yesterday.
I haven't yet.
There's this kid that's like a young superhero, Sage Northcutt, and he's like a 19-year-old. He wanted to get his, I don't know how many fight before he turned 20. Like, he's a teenager still. And he fought last night, and he got caught in a head and arm choke, but it was out of half guard, and it didn't really look locked up, and he tapped. And everybody worldwide, they have all these things to say about him and all that. And I thought, man, and then people, what do you think about that? And I go, I think there's a young kid that went out there and he's trying to do this thing and he doesn't even know anything hardly about the world at all. And he's out there throwing it on the line. And that's something that very few people know anything about. God bless him, man. Like, he's always smiling, he's always happy, and he found out something about himself that day. You think he's out there fighting for you or something. You don't even know why he's there.
Yeah.
That's
and you don't know what happened was for him.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the way I understand what you mean. You should have done this, you should have done that, blah blah blah.
Right.
If you were in the middle of it, you
I would have
really
never.
have a
I
clue.
hear that all the time. I'd never tap inside the octagon. If I was on there, my pride and my family name would be on. Like, shut the fuck up. You don't have any idea. You've never even had a wrestling match. Stop it. Stop. I know you're tough at 7-Eleven. Cut it out.
So everybody listen, you got to realize when Tait and Isaac started, we had a couple other guys that were fighting, Mike Flurby and Jeff Inman, and we'd go out in the backyard and beat on each other. And I think you had trained for maybe a month, a couple of weeks.
40 days, I remember.
And we went out to one of the gatherings, and Tait's going around.
But I'd watched all the tapes.
Yeah.
I'd studied, man. I'd done everything. And when you talk about being in fights, like Isaac and I must have fought legitimately probably 200 times in that 40 days. Like we would fight all day long. We'd go, hey, what are you doing? We're playing video games. You want to go out and fight? And we'd go in the backyard and we'd scrap. Like, once we learned a few things, and then I swung that axe. You told me about power, and I'd be out on that bag, wearing that bag out with axe handles and lead pipes, trying to be able to get my grip strong enough to, like, all that.
Yeah, my theory is I don't care if you block. It just means you get hit with 2 sticks.
Yeah, I'm coming through whatever you're putting up.
We go out to that first gathering with Tait, and he's going around asking everybody to fight. And you're like, yeah. You go, where do you train? You go, oh, in Santa Fe. And they're like, oh, no, sorry, maybe later.
Yeah, they'd go. I remember standing because I'd seen all the tapes, and I'd seen this monster, just a monster. And they called him Dogzilla, is what a monster he was. And him going, oh, hey, Arlan, how you doing? And he's a huge guy. He was a running back for the United States Marine Corps football team.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Like that.
I know he played, and he was a guard of the
federal penitentiary guy.
Just a great guy. Just huge, strong,
monstrous
tough
guy. And maybe it was with Flurby. I saw him. It was with somebody. I don't know who the other guy was in the tape. I don't think it was Mike. But he ran him over. Like, it was just savage. Running at him, stick, what, left, right, like over and over, and then just running, the guy falling back. Like, it was like watching, like the run of the bulls or whatever that.
Yeah.
It was like that, except it was one guy trampling one other guy, and it was awful. And I was like, that's that guy. And I'm just sitting there wide-eyed. And you're all smiles and everything, and you're like, oh, you'd be a good fight for Tait. And I'm in my head, and I'm going, are you out of your god? What are you doing to me right now, Arlan? And then he looks, and he just kind of looks me up and down with a not friendly look, and is like, and it's as if I'm not even there. Well, where's he train? I'm right here, and you go, oh, he's just been training with me. I don't want to fight him. Before me is even out, I don't want to fight him. And that's kind of the weight that you have out there in that world of like that kind of thing about power and really, it's a weird thing about cutting the fat off. Like a lot of teachers, I think, and maybe not as much anymore, I don't know, but like it's hard to not find bullshit in the martial arts field. And with that is like, a guy that's like, well, I can get this guy advanced to this much in this amount, in X amount of time or whatever. And it's like, you just took all that, and you're like, no, I could get you ready in a month. We could do that, and it'll be fun. You'll go and learn something. And that's what I tell everybody in jiu-jitsu, too. They're like, well, I just started 2 weeks ago. No better time to go compete. Let's get competition feet. Let's learn about competition. And because there's so much, like I said before, like that's where all the PRs get set. That's where you learn how seconds are valuable. How valuable is a second? Nate and I were talking about it in the workout. It's like nobody that's never worked hard understands how long 4 seconds or 15 seconds or something can be. Like, that can be everything. Like maybe your guts are going to come out through your throat. Like you don't know what's like. It's huge.
Yeah. We had talked a little bit about some of the aspects when you go to fight. And one of the things, like when Nate and some of the other guys start coming up, I go, until you fight somebody you don't know. We spar, and I got to say, even though we knew each other, we had some pretty freaking, there's like this progression. You start off and you're fighting somebody so you're kind of taking it easy. Or not taking it easy, but you're going,
Yes.
They're still your friend and then...
You have a real gentleman's fight.
Yeah, and then as you both get better, pretty soon it's like you jump to this other level where you know what they can do, and I know what they can do, blah, blah, blah. And now he's just my opponent.
Right.
You know, there's a point where it changes from being a friend to just an opponent.
And then that's what I think too. And then you're like a rogue gentleman. You have a bit of a roguish aspect to you, and you're like, we're going to be brusque and brutal here.
Somebody asked once, he goes, what do I got to know about stick fighting? And I go, hit the other guy, don't let him hit you.
Right. I remember I said to you one time, I'm like, I don't know if I could hit another guy that's my buddy with a stick. And you're like, and you without like any hesitation, you're like, oh, after I hit you one time, you're going to be eager to hit me. Don't even worry. Let's go. Come on. Just all easy and comfortable.
Well, you know, at one point, I explained to somebody, I can teach you everything I know about stick fighting in about an hour.
Yeah.
You know, but what you're going to do with it after that is going to be a journey. And one of the issues I kind of see with martial arts is I think that a lot of people that teach feel the need to keep expanding on, you know, there's a core of stuff that works.
Yeah.
And then there's other things you can add to that based on the people. And going back to talking about Edgar, you know, he was able to take people and add to what they do. But there's a point where you're just sort of adding more and more peripherals that don't do anything. And that was one of the whole points of doing Dog Brothers in the beginning was, you know, I'd been told you can't do this, you hit somebody in the knee with a stick, they're crippled for life.
Right.
Well, the first time I hit Eric in the knee, and he, like you said, he just kind of smiles at you. You're
Walks
going
through it.
Well, that didn't really work out like I envisioned it at all.
Different kind of party than I thought we were having.
And I just see that there's sort of this thing. It's like people sort of take everything to the edge, and then it gets a little more convoluted, and then somebody goes, you know, this is kind of silly. I don't think this is going to work, and they go back and they start again. You know, I don't think what we've done as Dog Brothers is anything unique. I just think it's probably because of the...
And then brought strangers together.
Yeah.
Going back to your original point that, like, yeah, you're friends. We're kind of meeting each other at a certain level of aggression. And then we're like, ooh, he's a solid opponent. Like, that's an opponent I need to respect. So I'm going to bring it. And he's going to. And then you're at that level. And then you're with somebody else. And then you got a choice to make. Well, I don't really know them. I want them to think I'm polite. Or that person's going to try to hurt me. And what am I going to do here? I want to make this as quick and painless for me as possible. Like, and you get to answer all those questions of who you are inside that moment.
And the other sort of the flip side of that is as you go along and you spar people. One of the things I always thought was great about Eric Knaus is everybody that fights him thinks if they train for another 3 or 4 months that they're going to be able to take him.
Yeah.
I don't care from beginning to guys that just think they're the baddest ass guys you've ever seen, including myself. It's like, if I train for another couple of months, you know, I think I'm going to be able to take him because he fights just enough above your level to make you feel like if you pushed yourself a little more. So instead of, you know, beating the crap, because I've seen a number of guys that go in and they just beat the crap out of somebody and it ruins them.
Right.
You know, they're not going to come back. They got their ass whipped and they're just like, screw this. I ain't going to do this shit. You get done fighting Eric and you've been there. I mean, you get done with Eric and it's like, he comes over, man, great fight, la, 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 la. And you're going, you know, I think if I trained another 4, 5, 6 months, I think I could take him. Yeah. Everybody I know, I don't care who they are, everybody thinks that, but like say right down to me included.
Sure. But Eric's not one of those guys that's looking to crush. He's a guy that gets off on the competition. So it's not competitive for him if he turns the volume to 10. He's like, oh, I'll keep it at a 6, and then it'll be fun and competitive. He's looking for that. And also I think, and I'd heard it through Mark Denny's mouth, of, you know, of course, a gun or whatever is going to be Trump. Like, that's going to happen. But, like, other than that, we're just a tribe, mate. We're not trying to crush other members. We're trying to make other members stronger because we're a unit here. And in the idea of an incoming party coming to overcome us, we want all of us. We don't want to have one guy that crushed everybody else. We want to have everybody be strong. How do we elevate everybody? And that was really the first idea that I had about rising tides raise all ships.
Yeah, and I think that's been a really cool thing. I mean, people go, well, you know, I would do this and I'd do that. You know, your fencing mask is still a mask. You know, well, I like my eyes, I like my teeth, I like my nose.
I tell you what, too, I'd be no different without that mask on.
No,
and maybe I'd be more savage, like because the stakes would be higher.
The stakes are higher.
My consequences are high now. I'm going to get you.
And Eric and I were going to fight without any gear the first week we went, and we didn't do it. And I've always kind of regretted it. I mean, I won't do it now but I always kind of regretted not trying it. And he actually did it with another student of mine, and it kind of changes the way you fight. You're not, you know, I don't care even with a little fencing mask. You know, one you're going to get knocked out on. It's different when you put
skin.
When you put your eyes, your mouth, your teeth all that on the line. It's one thing to worry about getting knocked out. It's another thing to worry about getting blind. But one of the issues that comes up a lot is people are going, well, if I was in a fight, I would do this and that. I'd hit them in the back of the head, or I'd do this and that. And I go, well, that's not what we're doing. We're trying to. You brought up a good point. We're trying to raise everybody, and you don't do that by maiming people.
Well, and the other aspect of that is everybody thinks that because they have some impotent training in something that doesn't work from some bunk ass master in quotations that's out there. And I go, okay, go ahead and try. I've fought so many guys, I can't even count them, that have come into different gyms and gone, well, I would do this. Your jiu-jitsu is no good. I would do X, Y, or Z. Okay. They're like, oh, you'd let me eye gouge you? If you can eye gouge me, go ahead. You stick a thumb in my eye, you can't imagine how bad I'm going to fuck you. Like, you're going to be fucking changed forever. You do that to me, check it out, homie. I'm going to mount you, and I'm going to destroy you. Go ahead, grab my nuts. If that's what you're going to do, see how it's like when I put 15 elbows through your face. Like, it's just like, you're crazy. That's not something, because the thing is if you're looking for control and finish, what does a finish mean, and what does control look like? It doesn't look like playing with a guy's balls in that setting.
When one of the nice things about Dog Brothers is you get a lot of people coming in, especially early on. When we were just out in the park, there'd be a gathering. Used to be me and Eric fighting all day.
Crazy.
And we'd have the surfer crowd around there. At the end of the fight, they'd give the thumbs up, thumbs down deal. And but I remember some of the gatherings be 2, 3, 4 people, and we'd just be out there all day. But we'd get some people showing up wanting to try it. We had a guy that did kendo one day, and he just kind of showed up out of the blue, and he was going to use his shinai, the bamboo one.
And that's like a 5 foot.
Yeah, but it doesn't really hurt.
4.5 foot. Yeah. It's like a facsimile of a sword, right? Of a samurai sword.
And I said, no, you can use your bokken, the wooden one. And he goes, oh no, he says, this will kill somebody. I'll kill you with this. And after I broke both his hands, and it was okay, but but he didn't know I'd done kendo for a couple of years. But it was the idea that he had been told that this, and it is a killing weapon, but it only works if you make it work.
Right. Well, and also you'd have to be that guy that was able to operate that weapon, and also you'd have to be doing it against a guy that was operated under whatever muted experience he had, like whatever that was,
And we'd get guys coming in, Tapato, that's the one I kind of remember. Tapato's a long kind of a stick staff, and they did lots of straight overhead shots. And their thing was they were just invincible because they had so much power. And
a little bit of distance, more distance.
Yeah. And so one of the guys fought Eric. And by the end of the fight, this guy was swinging with all these, anything he possibly had. And in the interview at the end, they're going, well, you kind of got out of doing the Tapato. And the guy goes, you got to do what works.
Yeah.
Well, he put himself in that crucible between theory and reality, and reality kind of.
I love it, man, and I love that idea of it, and like all the different things that the Dog Brothers play with. Whether it's I'll fight you with a baseball bat or a chain. Like a chain is like a guy swinging a chain. That's laughable. Like I'll fight you without any weapons. Like that's totally fine. You get that idea. You go, yeah, Tait, a guy with a bat, he gets one swing, and then I'm on top of him. And I was like, oh, and then they talk about spatial relation with what the fight is, and whoever owns the space owns the fight. And it doesn't matter what you're fighting with at that point.
Well, I've always thought martial arts was controlling space. I mean, people talk about ranges and et cetera, et cetera. To me, it's just control. I mean, you've seen how I fight.
Yeah.
I just go forward.
Yep.
And whenever I was watching videos of, I don't remember when those fights were, 2000 or somewhere back in there. I was watching some of the videos, and everybody had masks on.
Right.
And it was like, well, I can sort of tell. And then you come out and you have your mask on, and immediately it was, oh, yeah, that was Tait. I remember that fight.
Plodding.
And it's just boom, 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 that forward pressure all the way down the line.
Yeah, man.
And it was just like, no give. I tell people one of the things I like about Cabrera Brong is I don't care if I'm running backwards full speed. My intent is forward.
Interesting.
And that clicked so well because we met before I did the Cabrera Brong. And I watched that fight, and it was like, yeah, even when Tait's going backwards, you can tell his whole intent is forward. I don't care what you were doing going backwards. If you were backpedaling as fast as you could go, you can see that your intent was forward. And I think that's a really cool thing, and it's a hard thing to cultivate. And that's one of the things I like about Cabrera Brong is you always have that forward intent and that pressure and stuff. But
I always remembered hearing, like when I would read about masters and they would talk about Muay Thai and Krabi Krabrong, and they would talk about that there is no defense. There is only offense. And so everything that I'm doing is just to inflict damage on you, even if it has the added benefit of perhaps blocking something that's coming, but I'm coming with a force that is to finish my opponent.
Yeah, well, I tell the guys in class, I go, every block is a chamber for a hit. Every hit's a chamber for another hit. There's no staccato, there's no block hit, blah, blah,
What do you think
blah.
about Wing Chun in that way, where there's a lot of this trapping and then hit, and that's another thing. I think it looks beautiful. Like it comes up a lot for me in film work, but because it looks awesome, it's really cool to watch. However, I think about you with power, and I think all that stuff, like if I swing my leg at any of that, like you're cooked. And so there's a little bit of the efficacy of it taking out of it with the artistic nature of it to view it as a beautiful thing. Is that right?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, years ago when I started training at Warrior Priest Arts with Doug, and we went to this seminar with a world famous Wing Chun guy. I mean, just, world famous. Everybody knew him. The highest ranked American, whatever, anyway. And he was going, any volunteers, come up and kick me. I don't care. Anybody can kick me. And I've regretted not going up and doing a Thai kick on that guy 30 years later.
Awesome.
Because it would have. But to go back to your question on the Wing Chun, I did Wing Chun for a number of years, and it was a blast. And I think there's a time and a place for it. When I use Wing Chun is when I'm grappling.
Huh.
Because all that control with the stuff, it ended up working to control hands, people going for your collar. And I'm going, I just did a Wing Chun move. I would never do them standing up because I did. Wing Chun might be great, it might be fun, but I tell you what, a couple of elbows and that's the end of Wing Chun.
Right. Well, and I think that there's many things, like it comes up in weightlifting a lot where they talk about like people that are doing like any kind of strongman or CrossFit or any kind of functional movements. They laugh at people that go to regular gyms because you're like, oh, you're on a machine that's letting you do bicep curls. Awesome, you're really killing it, and that's just silly or whatever. And the thing is like a lot of the stuff that's in standard gyms like that are auxiliary movements that are there so that you can do these bigger movements. Like you can increase your deadlift by having better bicep strength. So that's an auxiliary thing that you'd be doing to enhance that. You'd be doing tricep work to enhance a pressing motion. And so these auxiliary movements become primary movements for pussies. And I think the same thing in a lot of fighting styles. There's these auxiliary movements that are hella important to use, but they need to be used in conjunction with a greater intent, maybe.
Absolutely, intent. I mean, if I had one word to sum up martial arts, it would be intent.
Interesting.
That's if you don't have intent, it's not going to go well. It's just not. I don't care how good you are. If you don't have intent, and intent leads to power, it leads to the ability to flow, it leads to the ability to control the distance. But if you don't have that intent, you're just kind of playing around. And you can see when people fight, the ones that have real intent and the ones that are just kind of, I'm going to put on a show.
And also it's a focus in being present. It's like if you don't, like the minute you don't have you're not present in this moment, or you don't have that intention, you're not relentless. That's not a relentless pursuit of victory.
Yeah.
You don't have any of that. You're just a dude laying there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Really, at the end,
what the hell just happened?
Like if you lose focus of your mind in that way, that's the interesting thing about people, I think, that don't mess around with martial arts, that look at it from the outside and they look at it in a way, oh, that's just this brutish thing, or these guys doing that, and they miss the thoughtful aspects of, like, you really need to be an enlightened being in a lot of ways to get the nuances of what martial arts can offer you.
Stick fighting for me has been one of the most philosophical things I think I've done. And I like to read.
You like to read.
Spend a lot of time.
How many books have you read in your life? 4,000?
Oh, I've got that many in the garage.
I mean, it's so you bring up an interesting thing. Everybody asks me, who's your favorite philosopher? And I usually say something crude and doesn't sound very smart in response to that, because I don't hold a lot of stock in philosophy. in the way that they're asking me the question. They're asking me about Descartes or Nietzsche or something. And I'm like, he's a drunk with a bad attitude about life. Or he's, and usually what I would say is those guys are do-nothings that are having tea at the flower shop, talking about how they're better than everybody that's out there actually doing something. And I like this, I don't know if there's a term for it, you probably tell me if there is, but like a philosophy of motion, a philosophy of that intention and of a participant, because we got spectators and participants, and all the spectators think that they're the same, which is fucking wrong. Like, you're beta to the max and good luck with life, but just know you're there's a difference. And so that whole thing about like that's why I would really look to people who ask me like what religion I would go towards or something like that if I were of that ilk, which I'm not, but I would say like a Stoic or like Marcus Aurelius is taught me so much, or Lao Tzu is really like those kinds of teachers that are like, here's how you put your feet on this earth. And so in that way, like I would say that you're a philosopher that I respect, admire, and look to, and like, and so what do you think about that notion in that way of if somebody would ask you, who's your favorite philosopher?
Oh,
it's almost like a loaded question.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's a matter of time and place and where you're at and what you're doing. I mean,
if you're 20 years old, as a 20-year-old, what would you think?
I wished I had read more Marcus Aurelius. You brought that up, and it's funny to do because I think if I had been 20, that my course of life might have changed if I'd had that kind of thinking in my mind.
Like a dominion over your mind.
Yeah.
That's what he gives me. He's like, here's how to discipline your mind. Here's the appropriate thought to think instead of this emotional thought that you're prone to think or whatever. I was like, mind blown when I read him.
And now I'm going to have to go back and read it all over
Yeah,
again.
Meditations is a motherfucker. That I'm like, I don't know what y'all get out of the Bible, but you might want to check this guy out.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't say, Tait, because
what about as a 30-year-old? Because then life's changing. You're looking at like you're with a partner.
I don't have an answer. I apologize.
It's all right.
It's like, at the time you can look back and think, well, if I had done this or if I had seen that or if I had read this, but you still have to have a context to put it in. I was 10 or 11 when I read Mein Kampf. Mm-hmm. And I could read it, and I understood the words, but I didn't understand what was behind it. And I think there's still a lot of that. There's things I read now.
Have you reread that later in life?
No, and actually this came up here a little while back, and I thought, I guess in Germany they just allowed it to be published in Germany again, and because it's been banned since then. I had no idea what it meant. I understood the words. I didn't understand what was behind the whole thing. And I think that's been true with a lot of philosophers and stuff over the years is I see the words, but I don't understand the intent. Marcus Aurelius, if I had read Marcus Aurelius when I was 20, it wouldn't have made any difference.
Because you wouldn't have had the word. Yeah, man. There was a guy, I was in this halfway house for a while, and I'd always ask all these questions because I was terrified. I was like, I don't feel safe getting let out. I feel like I would do myself harm, like I would make bad decisions and all this stuff. I was I was really searching, and I would ask all these questions. This guy, he was just this cool dude. This dude Terry and this dude Mike, and they're both Vietnam vet dudes. One of the guys on his desk has a bumper sticker that says, "What are you gonna do? Send me back to Vietnam?" And another guy's got, "Watch your step over the door," and there's no step that you walk, kind of thing. And I'd ask them that, and they go, "You want to know stuff that a 35-year-old guy that's maybe been married and divorced or had kids and lived a life has known. You can't know that yet. You don't get to know that yet. You have to live your own life. You got to get he said, any answer I give you, Tait, is going to be an empty answer. It's my answer, not yours. And you got to find your own."
I agree with that completely. I think that's a great way to look at it.
Same thing years later, a few years later after that, and I go, well, what are these? I'm trying to sort out like defects of my character and how to hone myself into a better man and all this kind of stuff. And I go, I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what the words mean really. Like, can you tell me yours? And like, I can maybe have an idea then, and then I can work through this process. And he goes, I can, but I'm going to say this to you with a cautionary note. And I want you to know that what is maybe deleterious to you is going to be something that still improves my life, and vice versa. So whatever is a asset to you might be a defect for me, and vice versa. So don't take any man's values as your values. We want to find your own values here, Tait, and we want you to find what those are so you can work and walk through life with something you feel good about. It's not about what other people think about you. And it's the first time I really started looking at that, because everybody would talk about these moral codes and all that, and I'm like, it's not really mine because they haven't been vetted through my own experience.
It sounds like somebody I'd really like to meet. I think that's a great way to look at things. God, that'd be a. But that goes back to that. I was talking about Edgar in teaching. I think that is exactly the same example. Everybody has their own path to follow, and if you can find somebody to guide you on your path, it's not going to look like his path. It's not going to look like my path. But if you need some kind of guidance, one of the issues I see is there's a lot of people that will point you down their path.
Right.
And I think that's a huge mistake. I mean, I can guide you through my experiences, but they're just my experiences. And, I'll tell somebody when I start teaching, is like, I'm going to show you what works for me. You find your own thing that works for you. You're going to move different. You're going to approach different. You're going to think different. All I can do is give you some base things that work for me and go from there. And it was, once again, it goes back to when we first started. I just think back, I mean, basically, what I just said earlier about hit somebody, don't let them hit you, lead with power. I don't remember telling you anything any more than that, and you turned into one hell of a fighter.
Right. That's the interesting thing too. I was talking, I've been reunited with my daughter, and she's 19 years old, and it's like you have to talk to people differently that I'm not used to. I'm pretty short and brusque, I think, with the way I speak to most people, and it's just the way I speak to myself. It's the way I can hear it, and so that's what I do, and whatever. But I want to say things that are like, hey, the way you're behaving here, I've seen this movie 1,000 times. You're gonna get in a wreck here. By the time you're 32, you're going to be so sorry, because this is going to set off a course for your life, whatever, right? And I look at all that stuff and I go, where did you learn to be any different? And it's all in fights, man. And it's really in stick fights and jiu-jitsu. And in that, if we go and we roll for a few minutes, and I used to coach Nate, and I would say, just stay on top. I would try to get simple things. Stay on top, try to stay on top. And I would go and I would sweep. And then if you fail to get an underhook or something, I would go to the back and I would choke and finish. And then I'd go, okay, let's reverse engineer that and go back. Here's where it fell apart for you. And then you can, for sure, you can still feel my arm in your neck. You're like, yeah, I don't like the arm in the neck thing. And okay, if I'd have gotten that underhook, I'd have been safe. That wouldn't have happened. It would have been something else would have occurred, but and so you can learn right then when I give you advice, because it was just in this 3-minute window that happened, that I'm right. Well, who's going to believe you when you're talking about, I'm elongating this over 15 years. By the 14th year, this is going to have sour results. But you can't do that. That's why these competitions, I don't know how else to give it. I mean, I can't tell people enough what jiu-jitsu has given me in that way. Because it's you get these lessons that are decade lessons that are condensed into fucking 3 minutes.
I'm still getting them.
It's wild, right? Or in a short work, in the workout we just did, or whatever, all that stuff. It's just you get these lessons about the value of time, of moments, of decisions when your mind breaks. Oh, you broke your attention for a second. Sorry, you're not able to move anymore.
Well, that kind of brings up an interesting thing, kind of head off on another thing. We've been doing the strongman stuff. And I got to tell you, there's been few things over the years. I mean, martial arts was one of them. I got to tell you, I've been lifting since I was 20. I mean, consistently in the gym, whatever, of some sort of lifting over the years. And when we started doing the strongman stuff, I don't think I've ever had anything that sort of inspired me in a physical way as much as that has. I mean, after this last summer and having surgery and stuff, I mean, it's been a real bummer, because I felt like, here I am, I'm 60, and I have found something. I'm not just going to the gym and going through the rote stuff and, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I can't do the stuff I used to do in the gym. I have this whole new thing now of, I don't know where I can go with it. And it just gives you this inspiration. It was like, okay, the Atlas stones.
It's like learning a new language.
It is. I mean, we go the Atlas stones for whatever reason. Picking up a damn concrete ball is about as much fun as I can come up with.
Isn't that wild? I know it.
And I'm sitting here going, I have no idea. Deadlift, I'll never deadlift what I used to do. Squat, I'll never squat what I have no idea what I can do on a concrete ball or what I'm going to do with it. And people are like, what the hell? And I'm going, until you do it, until you experience it, you don't understand.
Yeah.
And when we come in and when we did that class, I came away from that class going, number one, I wished I was, 40 years younger. But number two, I go, I have a whole new outlook on what I'm going to do now because I have a whole new set of parameters that I don't know where they go.
How important is that to put in your life?
It's huge. I think it's huge. Especially, I'm 60, I'm 61 now. And one of the things you get to is there's things you can't do anymore. So if you really enjoyed them and you can't do them anymore, what do you replace them with? And you don't want to go backwards. You don't want to go downhill. It's like, well, I don't want to go from, doing stick fighting and weightlifting and drop down to doing something that I feel is lesser, whatever it might be. But you need to find some way to channel that into something I can still do body-wise. And, there's just limitations on getting older.
I play badminton or whatever the thing is.
Yeah. And the strongman stuff, you saw, I'm sitting here going, damn, this is... it just, once again, you get these little things that shift your outlook on stuff, and it's funny where they come from. Martial arts was one for me, and doing the strongman. I've literally been lifting since for the last
forever,
40 some years.
powerlifting and all that, like a very successful lifter.
And all of a sudden, it's just, I have this whole new thing. I haven't been, I go to the gym because I need to go to the gym. Now I have this whole thing where I'm enthused about it.
Right.
And I talk about
Even
it.
if it's, how silly does it look too? I'm going to go walk the sled around the block. Like I'm dragging a steel sled behind me, and I'm happy about that. I'm doing I did 150 pounds, walked around or whatever. It's fun, man. It's a cool thing. And that's the thing of how to excite the mind. This idea, it came up last week, Arlan, about vision, about what you see. And I was always of the idea, especially when I got sober and my mind clears a little bit and I'm looking at the grass and I'm like, wow, that's like I've never seen grass before or something, like these kind of new eyes that you look at life with. And a guy told me, he goes, the eyes aren't so you can see more. They're to filter things. Because if you looked at every pore in my face, every wrinkle, every you'd go crazy with the amount of information that was being input into your brain. It's to filter things so you don't see as much. So maybe you want to think about seeing in a different way. And he'd lay all this crazy shit on me like that. Anyway, I'm talking to my mom and she saw a documentary a week ago or something. She's talking about sight, and then we start talking about babies, because we're talking about sight as remembering, as you see a car once, you don't ever see another car again. You're seeing the same car and you're shaping it differently in your mind or something like that, but you already have an idea of that thing. And she goes, then you look at babies, and babies see things with their hands, and then they put them in their mouth, because that's maybe the most sensitive touch and nerves is your mouth and your lips, and you start to feel things. And so that's how they first see everything. They want to put everything in their mouth and play with everything. And it's a kind of a weird thing. And so that idea about you don't see anything new, if I'm not careful, if I just go in a cubicle and I'm there every day, I'm like, what a dour existence that is. And how I really have needed, when I say how important is it to push yourself into this new thing where I'm like, I don't know what the ceiling is here. And because I feel like I really need to live that way. Otherwise, I'd rather eat a bullet. I'm prone to depression. I'm prone to all those things. I need that new stimulus to go, I want to see a car I've never seen before.
But one of the things you got to be a little careful of is as you get older, that becomes harder. That's a view that's harder to do because it's just, I won't say you get comfortable, but it's just, your options narrow physically. And
do your desires change?
The core ones, I don't think so. But sort of the peripheral things, is I want to try this and I want to try that. And to me, life is about trying as many things as you can and experiencing them. If I get interested in something, I'll read up and I'll do whatever I want for however long it lasts. For a while, I got interested in Japanese woodblock prints. So I watched how they were carved. I tried carving some. I learned all the names of the guys that were, the artists and how they did them and all that. And that lasted about 6-8 months, and it was great. And then it was on to the next thing. And it was I want to find something that keeps me interested in life.
Right.
And one of the issues with getting older is sometimes it takes a little longer to get that interest going. So,
right.
But I still think it's one of the things. I see people my age, I'll run into them, and I'm like, God, what are you, 75, 78 now? They're going, no, I'm 58. And I'm going, oh my God.
Well, that's the thing I find too. So you say, oh, I'm 60, 61, whatever. I find a weird thing is people's stopping points are all different. Like their quit switch is different. And like I look at a lot of guys, and I know guys. I mean, when I was still bouncing at the Paramount, I'd see guys that used to be good boxers or whatever, and they'd come in, they're like 25 or whatever, and they're fat and shitty, and I'm just getting into martial arts at that time, and they're done. They're like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I'm like. What do you mean? When you're young, you're like, you're 24 years old. What are you talking about? And they're like, oh, well, when I was 16 or 17, I was in shape, and now I'm like, what point did you decide to just quit? You quit at what the fuck? And I think about that kind of stuff, and I see it now still, and I go, oh, I guess maybe I'll feel like that when I'm that guy's age or something. But when I'm saying that now, I'm talking about guys that are 35 that I'm older. I'm older than that guy, and he acts though, or he's saying words that I'm like, maybe I would say that when I'm his age, which I'm already
I never
way
thought
past.
about that. That's a good point that everybody sort of has this quitting point. And, we go back to sticks. I think Nate and I haven't really full bore stick sparred yet, but we've gone some rounds. And then I fought a year ago. First time I fought in years up in Canada, big sticks, and went all out. And it was like, I can still hold my own in this shit. I don't know how much longer it's going to last. But,
you're the most dangerous man on 2 feet.
But I don't want to lose it, but sometimes you got to find some other way to channel it. After that fight, it was like, okay, how am I going to make this go?
Where do you separate that thing of not wanting to lose it because I want to be the most dangerous man on 2 feet into I'm not, like, because in jiu-jitsu, it's like, for me, it was like that. It's like, it used to be like, wherever I go, any city I go to, I'm going to be the best guy in the room 98% of the time. Like, then the instructors, then whomever's there. Now it's like, everybody's going to be better than me, or whatever the thing. I mean, that's maybe not accurate, but like, whatever the thing is like there's a certain point where you go, I'm not a competitor, and so I don't have a competitor's mind in that way. Like, I have like a historical reference of what that is in me, and there's parts of that in me, but it's like, it's not like when I was training, I'm training for a result. Like, I'm going to fight somebody, and so my intention is more playful now, I guess. And I look at that and I go, at what point, then do you put that away? And I used to think there was two different kinds of guys. Like, there's guys that want to crush guys all the time, and then I used to think like the whole world's built on, it's going to sound super crude to you, but it's built on like women and the seeking of that. And like, guys get out of bed because that they want to do that and conquer and all that kind of thing. And it makes the world go round in a way, like, why do you want a nicer car? Because I'd like to get some more girls, or whatever the thing is, like whatever that deal is. At some root-based level, we're kind of like that. And so I think about that and I go, okay, well, after your hormones wane and you get into a different place and you're just growing into a mellower spot in your life, you have two options in a way. You can either become a hater and keep crushing guys that are, and in whether it's financially or whatever way you can cut their Achilles out, or you become a guy that's like, I've traveled the road and I'm here to help, and you just offer yourself to become helpful to everybody. I feel like the world can get split into two different types of dudes like that. You've got Dick Cheney's over there, and then you've got Arlan Sanford's over here. You got dudes that are, you know what I mean? It's like, and I think that the one side speaks to health and fruitfulness of trying to help the community, and the other side really speaks to cancer.
For me, it's been, when you get to that point where physically, mentally you're going, I can still do this, and your body's going, no, you really can't. So you have to make the decision, do I look back at like boxers like Archie Moore and stuff like that. I mean, hell, he fought until he was in his 50s. Anyway, I mean, he was just an incredible. But I see other guys that they go past that point and then they start getting their asses whipped. So
Evander Holyfield fought too long,
do you want to be one of those guys because you can't draw the line on when it is to quit?
Right.
No, I don't. But it's hard. I mean, I understand that completely. It's been such a major part of your life for so long. You don't like the fact that you can't do it anymore. And that's a hard thing to struggle with. I got to tell you, it's just like, I still think I can do it, but my body's going, nah, not really. So where do you take that? And it's been, until I started teaching again, a couple years ago, I'd basically just given up on all that, because it was just like, if I can't do it, I'm not going to be involved. And it's kind of interesting now to be able to have guys come up and it's like, okay, I can't do it, but these guys are going to kind of represent me on a certain level as my students or trainers or partners or whatever. And to tell you the truth, there's a lot of satisfaction in that, that I am surprised that it showed up. I didn't see that coming, that having people do well that I've trained gives me something in my heart that's just kind of like, I can't do it, but I see what they're doing, and it kind of takes the place of that, and it kind of surprised me that turned out that way.
Yeah, I'd heard a reporter ask Coach Greg Jackson a similar. We're sitting in the room, and there's all these 40 guys in there or whatever, and it's all like Marquardt and GSP and Keith and Rashad and all the who's are there, and the guy goes, you've never had a fight. Do you ever feel like bummed out that these guys are under the spotlight and like, you're kind of in the backdrop as a coach or something like that, and you've never been, and Coach just looked at him like he was crazy, and he was just like, he's like, and he just waves his hand. He says, I get to help all these young men on a pathway to their dreams. He's like, what could be better than that? Well, like the mark that I get to make in that way is and I think about Mask, and the big quote that I love of Mask, which is like, I might not touch 1 million people, but I might touch one guy that touches 1 million people. It's like, just because you don't think you can doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Like, and to get out there, and I kind of think like being in a place of being a healthy man in a way, and growing into that consciousness is to be a coach, is to be in that conversation of like, I'm here for these people. I'm of service.
I think that's a neat, and to tell you the truth, I see it in you a lot. When we did that strongman class, it's really the first time we'd kind of been in that situation.
Yeah.
And it was so freaking awesome to do that and to see you sort of in that venue, because it's always been kind of the other way around.
Sure.
And to have it turned around like that was really kind of neat to see. I mean, you're sitting there and I'm going, yeah, I'm going to do it. Tait wants me to do it. My God, I'm going to do it. Shit,
It's a little daunting for me. I got to put on a coach's hat in a different way, and I'm like, Arlan's here. I better bring it. Because I think that that's the thing I say a lot too, is that like people are like, well, what do you think the mark of a successful person is or whatever? And I go, I really don't know all that kind of stuff, but what I think of for me is that all the guys that spent time with me when there was no goddamn reason to, and that maybe a lot of people wouldn't have, that those guys didn't feel like they wasted their time on me.
But your enthusiasm is genuine. I've been around people that they sort of have this fake enthusiasm about what they're doing or what they're teaching, and you can tell. I mean, you can read it. They're like, yeah, we're going to do blah, blah, blah.
Right.
When I'm around you, when you're doing your stuff, and it's just like, damn, yeah, I'm going to do that. Tait thinks this is cool, and I think it's cool now,
Yeah. Well, I tell you, man, when I see anything like that, Nate and I were talking today, and we're going through this workout, and it's like, I was talking about the importance of like doing it if you're going to teach it, because you find out things, you're like, oh, at that minute mark of this is where that happens, and or whatever, and you can help people to avoid the quit, like, because there's points in there, like if you're set up wrong, you'll quit. And like, if you can help people to get past that, like, I get excited about it, man. Like, because
it's obvious.
It's like you're in there,
I'm sitting there going, I don't know if I can really do this or not. And then you're over there. I think we were doing putting the stone over the bar or something. It's just one of those little things, and I'm going, I don't know if I can do this. And you're over there, come on! I mean, you're just this coach that's going on, and you're just enthused about it. You're enthused with whether I get it or not. You're enthused with the effort of it, and I think that's such a cool thing to see that,
because it was nice to hear.
I'm sitting there going, I don't care if I get it or not, but I'm really going to try now, because shit, this is a cool thing to work at.
It's all in the try, right? I remember I was out at Deuce, and there's a girl, and there's a bunch of us deadlifting. There's like 3 or 4 guys, and then she was there, and which always, if there's a woman in the room, I always I try to turn up the game of being a technician and being better and being like astute and aware, because it's hard. It's harder, I think, for girls to walk into a gym, and especially in jiu-jitsu, man. Like, I always feel like it's such an honor if a girl walks into the class and then she stays. Like, to me, that's like the highest amount of regard. Like, I really try to nurture that, because it's so important, I think, to give that to people that are weaker and smaller, which is just a fact of it, and to really respect how hard it is for. It's not easy for everybody to walk in the door. Walking in the door is hard, man. That's hard. And so this girl at Deuce, and she's lifting, and she gets like a PR in a deadlift, and it's like 165 pounds or something like that. And all three of us were all like, yes, right, like super, and like that kind of engaged, like, and her knees are buckling, and she bows, and she makes, and we're just like, ah, and we're right in it, And she gets done with the lift, and she's like, yeah, but that's. And she's like, excited, lets herself be excited for a second. And then she's like, yeah, but you guys, that's nothing. That's like whatever. And compared to you. And like that whole thing about how comparison is the thief of joy in that idea that like, it's not, and I started, and she taught me that day, it's not the thing, it's not the amount of, it's that thing in you, it's like having an opponent, having a stone or having a weight or what, it's like that thing in you created another energy, which is the effort in which that it took you to surmount that thing, whatever it was. And it doesn't matter what the stressor is. It matters that fucking I know what that pushing through is, and we're connected in that trying.
The method of getting there isn't as important as the results you get out of it.
Yeah, I know the suffering that you're in, and that's where we're attached right now. Is like we both know that suffering, and that's huge. The struggle, that struggle in life, that's huge.
And to tell you the truth, I think one of the things that happens when people get older is they quit struggling with. It's easy to go, I'm in my niche now, I have this, I can do that. I don't have to push for whatever reason. I don't do this anymore.
Because I understand there's no goddamn reason to lift a stone. There's no reason. But then there's every fucking reason to do it. I mean, because, those things where we struggle.
Now, explaining that reason sometimes
isn't it crazy? I mean, it's crazy, dude. that's why I admire anybody that's like really in jiu-jitsu or really trying to become a fighter or really whatever that. I mean, I just say that as my background is kind of egocentric, but like whether it's track and field or whether it's weight, whatever the thing is, man, I admire that shit so much because it doesn't, to your family, to your girlfriends, your wife, whomever, it doesn't look like it matters at all. And an argument can be made that it doesn't matter at all. And then just as much, the argument that maybe they'll never understand could be made that it's everything.
Yep.
That it's made all the difference. It's everything. I mean, it has been for me anyway.
Oh, once again, one thing leads to another. And to have that, to come here and feel that, I'd given up on martial arts, pretty much. I'd quit grappling, and I'd certainly quit doing sticks. And when I came back and started doing the CrossFit classes, I ended up stick fighting again.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, there's a connection here. I'm not sure where it's at, but just the fact I was struggling with one.
The vibrance goes into your work. And then all the guys at your work that are like, now we've all made stones at work, and now on our lunch hour we're swinging kettlebells and throwing stones around. Like, I mean, that's a huge impact.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot of fun, Tate. A lot of fun.
Yeah, okay, well, let's finish it up, man. And thank you, man. I love to do this again. I want to talk more. Like the book that keeps coming to my mind is Guns and Steel, Germs, Guns and Steel, and things like that. And I really like you're such a learned person in that way. I want to speak about all those things, but another day. And thanks so much for joining me, man.
That'd be a blast. Tate, we've been together. We've been around each other for years, and it's just been what you run into a certain number of people over your life. A lot of them just sort of come and go, and others just stay with you. I mean, I can count the number of people in my life, maybe on both hands, that I would consider friends that have been consistent through the whole time.
Yeah.
And you're one of them, and it's just been a blast.
It's a real privilege to know you, man. So thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun. And we'll do it again.
Great.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.